Senator Oscar Braynon II has represented the 36th District, which includes Biscayne Park, Miami Gardens, Miramar, Pembroke Pines, and West Park in southern Broward County and northern Miami-Dade County since 2012, and previously represented the 33rd District from 2011 to 2012. Before winning election to the Florida Senate, he served as a member of the Florida House of Representatives, representing the 103rd District from 2008 to 2011. Following his graduation from Florida State University, where he received a degree in political science, he worked in the legislative office of State Representative Kenrick Meek as an intern, and then for the Miami-Dade County Commission as a legislative aide and public relations coordinator. In 2003, he was elected to the Miami Gardens City Council over Oliver Gilbert, receiving 57% of the votes to Gilbert's 43%. Senator Braynon served on the Miami Gardens City Council from 2003 to 2008, serving as vice mayor of the city from 2005 to 2007. Please join me in welcoming Senator Braynon to the podium.
Thank you. That is a long list of things, and I'm telling you, I really am, these gray hairs don't make, I'm not that old. I'm really not that old. But it's an honor to be here. Thank you to having to follow two Congress people. Thank you, that was a great setup, no problem. Somebody gave you all the information, another guy made you laugh hysterically. I've got a lot to follow, so I am going to be brief. But again, this is, I just heard Congressman Deutsch's story, and it made me think of my upbringing. I grew up in a middle-class, working-class community just south of here that is now called Miami Gardens, but at the time, there was a little enclave called Rolling Oaks, right? And Rolling Oaks was known for being the home of the black middle class, like exactly that, the home of the black middle class. And it's rare that those type of areas are kept. My grandparents grew up in Overtown, or had a house in Overtown. And at that time, Overtown was where much of the black middle class was. And there was an expressway that was built through that. And so when you talk about preserving the middle class, it's hard to preserve when you do something like build an expressway through it. And then we moved to they moved to Liberty City. And when they moved to Liberty City, something happened there because that's where much of the middle class lived, the working class lived. But then they built massive amounts of public housing there, and there was a different population that was there. So that middle class moved north, and they moved to Carroll City. And Carroll City was now where that middle class was living. And then in about the early 80s, someone bought a huge swath of property. And it was called Honey Hill. And the guy's name was Joe Robbie. And Joe Robbie said, I'd like to build a stadium here in the middle of this middle class community. And that's when they just said, you know, we can't take it anymore. We're not going to allow someone to build something in the middle of our community that maybe doesn't match with us and doesn't seem to care about us. So there was a huge uprising about it. And I was about 8 or 9. And I would go to these meetings with my parents every day, and I would sit in the back and play with my friends from the community, and then they would say, and then eventually I said, man, let me figure out exactly what I'm coming here for every day. So I walked to the front of the room and I listened, and they talked about why they were against the stadium being built in their community. And they said, well, it's gonna widen our roads, the turnpike will have an off-ramp through our park, it'll make the property values go down, and we'll have to move somewhere else. And we're just tired of moving, because everyone there had someone that had moved from Liberty City or Overtown. And so we went out there and we picketed, and I got involved. I said, well, since that's going to happen, I'm going to read the newspaper. So it was my first time ever reading the newspaper and watching the news. And then and eventually the vote happened, and they said, yes, we're going to build a stadium. And I was pretty devastated, and I was upset, and I asked my mother why, and she said, well, it's the politicians. I said, well, I'm going to have to become one. And then here I am today. But what what really happened there was the people that were in charge of our area at that time, which are people like Betty T. Ferguson, who I eventually went on to work for, figured out a way to preserve the middle class area and allow the stadium to coexist. And that's what happened. We now have the streets on 199th that you see that go back and forth. There are no exits that go through the communities. That was the leadership in that area, making sure that we preserved that middle class. Now, that's just one of the many things that leadership can do to preserve things, something as simple as where the middle class can live, nice housing, affordable housing, nice housing. As a matter of fact, so now we're leading to a second generation of people, and I myself have moved back to Rolling Oaks, and this summer bought a house in Rolling Oaks. So again, it's keeping that middle class there. That's something simple. And what preserving the middle class does is it gives hope. It gives hope. If there's a middle class, then you have something to strive for. You know that you can provide for your family. And so all the things that we talk about that are issues going on in our community, crime, education, all these things are things that as we solve help us to preserve affordable housing, are things that as we solve help us to preserve that middle class and keep hope alive in our different communities around South Florida. So your mission and the things that you're doing are something that I and my family, and especially the treasurer of the board, Andrea Braynon, shout out to my aunt who's on the board, are very dedicated to this and have been for generations, and are very excited that this is happening here. And I am going forward to become the Democratic leader of the Florida Senate, and I follow behind some great footsteps of people that have talked to me about preserving the people that work every day, like my leader when I first got to the Senate, Senator Nan Rich, who's in the audience, who we every day fought for the middle class, and we continue to do that. And thank you for having me. And I don't have a joke to end, but I'm gonna say that I was thinking of doing the fan joke too, but he took it, and so now I can't do that one. All right, thanks.